Hey, David, what are you showing me? What is that?
I'm
Oh,
showing
your screen just dimmed.
I'm showing you the Walmart app, and I just clicked on the ad,
Uh-huh.
and this is their uh, special promotional offer on their annual Walmart Plus membership, where now it's again 50% off. This was something we observed last month,
So they're
and
so,
we're
so they're
seeing it
doing it two
again
months
now.
in a row.
Absolutely. So if it worked last month, why not try it again this month?
Well, that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about. Happy to be back with you. I've been traveling a little bit. We haven't been talking as much as we usually have or would. We have this time together now, so I'm looking forward to digging into June's numbers. So
Yeah.
how have you been?
Oh, well, I've been busy, Mark. Other than that, I've been doing okay. How about yourself?
No, living the dream.
Living the dream, taking care of your clients.
That's right, and trying to get a few more. Just put it
There
that
you
way.
go. There you go. There you go.
So let's dig into the numbers for the month of June. Let's get the headline out of the way, and then we can get into
Yeah.
some of the details. Go ahead.
Okay. I wrote a headline down here, Mark, for you because I know you like those. Delivery surge fueled by deep discounted promotional offers to lock in customers from May.
And we started off with a great example. So Walmart.
So, what was interesting is, yeah, we were talking about this last month that we observed some very deep discounts initiated at first by Instacart, 80% off their annual membership, followed shortly thereafter by Walmart with a 50% discount. And
Mhm.
that was in mid to late May. That title is referring to the fuel that drove the results we saw this month. But as we were just talking, Mark, we're now in the second round, at least, from what we can tell, of that promotional blitz from Walmart. So, I think what we were saying is, well, if it didn't work, I don't think we would see it a second time, 1 month after another. So that would suggest they were pleased with those results, and they're going out for more. So, good for Walmart, maybe not so good for others.
So let me ask you, I mean, how sustainable do you think? Because I know Instacart's doing something similar. How sustainable do you think these gains are?
Well, I think overall, the gains are going to be determined by how well both providers deliver against the expectations and demands of these customers. That being said, for those that did sign up for the annual membership, the sustainability appears stronger simply because they've just locked in the customer for the year versus a month, which just simply means that that customer now has a vested interest
Mm-hmm.
in continuing with whichever retailer that they're shopping with, whether that's Walmart or one of the retailers on Instacart. If I were Walmart, I would be pleased with the initial results, but we still have a lot more work to do to prove to those customers that we really are going to deliver the goods relative to the value of that membership.
Where do you think these customers are coming from? Do you think these have always been Walmart customers, or are they leading from other regionals who are taking advantage of these offers?
What we would generally believe
Yeah.
that these membership pushes are not necessarily drawing new to online customers in, but simply re-engaging or reactivating those that have lapsed, or more likely has simply converted who had been simply a customer before into a member. So in other words, we would generally believe that there are customers, even with Walmart, who aren't frequent customers, maybe every other month, or light customers placing one order a month. And those are most likely the two customer pools that are fueling this growth
Yeah.
for Walmart and Instacart. You have to be able to see that value. And in order to see that value from a customer standpoint, you need to be using the services already, because, again, the break even, if we were just looking at the monthly, is placing that second order. Now, the annual has different, calculations behind it, but, basically a similar approach would be made by the consumer when determining if it made sense or not.
If you're a regional, you're looking at this and you're saying, "There's no way I don't have the financial wherewithal to offer something similar." So what suggestions do you have for regionals to counter?
If you look at Instacart, they're still predominantly delivery. So what Instacart's doing makes sense. Walmart is predominantly pickup, and they're building their delivery business. So I'm a regional, I'm in delivery and pickup. We've said this before, how can I respond? Well, look at things that Walmart's not doing or what Instacart may not be motivated to do and consider those. So you have first party pickup service and you're saying, well, I can't match what Walmart or Instacart are doing for a variety of reasons. But at the same time, I have pickup that a large share of our customers value that I can promote and give some benefits for a subscription or a membership for that matter, right? So that's right out of the gate, one of the first places to look. So, retailers would then look at, well, no one else is doing it. That's not true. We know there are retailers doing it. That just means those retailers are lacking in their competitive intelligence. And then second of all, it's, understanding your customer. Walmart doesn't have a pickup fee, so your pickup customers could be vulnerable simply because you have a fee and they don't. We're primarily focused on the delivery side right now, and Walmart's trying to build their delivery business, and they're being very effective at doing that using Walmart Plus. But again, Walmart Plus really doesn't have many benefits for the pickup customer. So if I were the regional customer, I'd be looking at, well, how can I strengthen my pickup to better defend or compete against the likes of Walmart? That would be the first place I would start.
So are you recommending that retailers continue providing pickup at a fee, or is it a discounted fee or a fee that varies depending on the pickup window?
Well, it's a great question, Mark, and I think it really depends. First of all, today, the vast majority of regional grocers have a fee, right? Mm-hmm. And generally it's a fixed fee, or if it is a variable fee, the variable fee is based on, an average order hurdle that is so low that it really doesn't make sense anymore, $35. So what we would say, first of all, is those fees are important because that's part of the carrot and the stick. If you're going to offer a subscription or a membership, you have to remember, what is the customer going to get in return for what they have to pay? Having a fee on pickup gives you something to give up, right? So we have retailers who have subscriptions that are targeting not just delivery, but also pickup. And one of the benefits, depending on who you're looking at, may be that subscription waives your pickup fee, right? So you're paying to get something back in addition to other benefits. We have other retailers who maybe don't have a standard pickup fee, but they have an expedited pickup fee for someone who wants it within 2 hours. So now they have a membership program that can waive the expedited fee, right? The fees in connection with the subscription, kind of part of the strategy is understanding the linkage between those and how it can motivate the behaviors that benefit the retailer and the customer.
One of the notes that came out in the June results is, and I think it's picking up on May, is the apparent resurgence of ship to home. We know over the pandemic, ship to home had been declining month over month. What's going on with ship to home?
Important context, easy year-over-year comps. Last year, ship to home during this time of the year was down 10%. So it's lapping an easy comp. I think the other is, if we went back to 22 and looked at the quarterly results, all 4 quarters were down. Last year, I believe it was 2 or 3 that were down. This year, both the first and second quarters are up. So I think essentially we've seen the bottom of ship to home in terms of its retrenchment. And now we're starting to see, it's stabilized and start to grow from its new base. That's what we're seeing. So we didn't expect that ship to home would continue to fall indefinitely, but rather establish a new kind of base level and then build from there. And that's, I think, what we're seeing.
Now, is that primarily Amazon and Walmart?
It's primarily Amazon. It's important to remember that if we are looking at the ship to home segment of eGrocery, Amazon captures over half of that business, and mass is a little bit over 10, maybe 15%. I don't have the latest numbers in front of me, but if we were looking at the results by format, Amazon has had the lion's share of those gains attributed to them. And again, they're the largest share of that business, so that shouldn't be surprising.
So, and just for clarity, because I know Amazon has been making inroads in with several regionals in terms of representing them from a marketplace perspective. Where do those orders fall within your breakdown? Is that
Good
delivery,
question.
ship to home?
Well, when Amazon is partnering with a regional grocer, let's say like Bristol Farms or Weiss, right? That's what you're referring to. They would be classified under supermarkets for that, because those would be delivery and pickup orders. So Amazon doesn't get credit for that. It doesn't hit ship to home. In those cases, Amazon's platform would be viewed very similar to other third-party marketplaces like Instacart. It's just much smaller at this point, but for all intents and purposes, it functions the same way.
And speaking of Amazon, any further insight into what their longer-term strategy is going to be?
Do you mean what, relative to fresh?
Correct.
I think, they've had the doubling down. They've restarted opening up stores on the East Coast. A lot of those changes are the reflection of things that we've already observed in the Illinois and California markets. So it remains to be seen, how the consumer reacts to those changes. If we're looking at Illinois and California, for instance, there might have been temporary blips as they made the switch over. And again, we have Prime Day coming up. So that's going to have most likely a material boost to their in-store business because they have some deep discounts. But again, at the same time, the question still remains, how viable is the Amazon Fresh concept going forward, from the consumer standpoint? We still have a question mark on that.
The other tidbit that comes out of the June numbers, I think the report indicates that there's been a further drop in repeat intent rates, especially amongst the most frequent users. And, this raises the question about challenges in maintaining customer loyalty amongst regionals. What factors do you see as continuing to contribute to this decline?
Well, it was concerning that we saw the majority of the decrease in repeat rates driven by those that are most familiar with those services or those who use them most heavily. So, that is somewhat of a red flag saying, what is going on? What likely is going on is, the financial pressures on the lower and middle income groups are pressuring even those, stalwarts to consider the value shopping online versus, the alternative, right? So, and it's important to keep that in mind, that if you look at households that spend or that earn less than $50,000 annually, they're spending over 12% of their after-tax income on groceries. You look at that for 50 to 100,000, it's 8%. Then you go to the next income tier, 6%, and then for households over 200,000, they're spending 4%. So whatever's going on with pricing, it's very regressive in nature, meaning that its impact disproportionately affects the lower income. And while we are seeing continued disinflation, in some cases deflation, you could characterize that as a little late to the party in terms of having an impact, because the damage has been done. And we've seen that damage really started at the beginning of 2022 and has been the main catalyst for the flight to value that we continue to see. So it's hard to see, an immediate light at the end of the tunnel for the regionals relative to how you stem that flow, other than continuing to find ways to showcase or demonstrate how you're helping your customers save money.
And that's happening at the same time as the subsidies and the federal incentives have subsided, of course.
We're in the midst of a mini COVID resurgence in the summer, primarily in the summer or in the southern parts of the U.S., but I don't think that's had any material impact on the top line. We don't see that being reported in the media the way it used to. There may be a small subset of people who are adjusting as a result of that, but other people, we're largely back to, business as usual, right? We're lacking the federal subsidies or price supports that we have. We're continuing this slow evolution to the new way of working, whether it's worked at home or return to office or some combination of it. And again, we are still seeing the fallouts of that, because as people have to further change their lifestyles, there's cost considerations associated with that, whether it's commuting fees, childcare, and things of that sort, that people are having to wrestle with. At the same time, rent for households has gone up dramatically. And again, let's keep in mind, households that rent generally are lower on the income spectrum. So that's something that an upper income, let's say someone making over 100,000 or more, is likely not incurring, so they're not seeing this major change in monthly payments that maybe a renter is doing, right? So again, a lot of factors outside of the grocery sphere that are going to be contributing to some of the calculus that the customers are having to consider today.
And of course, I mean, the spectra has long been in place, which is, the mass merchants taking more and more shopping, or the weekly shop away from regionals, larger percentage of. Do you see any progress that the traditional grocers are making to better compete with mass retailers, or is it still an uphill climb?
Oh, it's probably gotten to be a steeper uphill climb. If we looked at our market share report, which looks at the quarterly changes in sales share, it's been going one way for mass while it's going the other way for supermarkets. And we've been having this spread in large ever since the beginning of 2022. So, that is, I think, highlighting that, the environmental factors and that the state of the U.S. household, especially, on the lower half, is struggling, mightily today, just given what we're seeing. And we can see this in other news announcements where companies are, also sounding the alarm that households continue to be under greater financial pressure. And again, that's the lower to mid income, right? It's not the aggregate number out there. So,
well, David, I think we've come to that point in the show that we want to just throw it out there and see what topics you want to bring up, or anything, any questions you want to ask.
Well, first of all, what regional grocers need to understand is, Walmart's flywheel is accelerating. That flywheel is accelerating because of the increased consumer demand that we would measure in terms of orders. So to kind of illustrate that, I visited one of our local Walmart shops, parked out in the parking lot, observed their pickup operations for several minutes, and they are closing in on Target's ability to deliver that last component of the online experience for the pickup consumer. One that I noticed is they're now batching a sizable share of the orders out in the distribution phase for pickup, meaning when the customer arrives and the employee comes out with their order, they're coming out with multiple orders. And this is something that Target had done much earlier. So this in and of itself enables Walmart to drive labor savings that help reduce its cost to serve. And at the same time, that volume is really helping their in-store picking efficiencies. I mean, these in-store pickers, where they could have 30 plus going in the store, who are picking in zones and batched out anywhere from 6 to 8 orders, are really driving incredible assembly efficiencies because of that. So if we just
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you just consider the picking efficiency that comes from having 1 to now 2 orders drops your assembly cost by 30%, you imagine what happens when you're picking 6 to 8. I mean, the labor savings for that particular activity drops tremendously. And now we're seeing the same thing on the distribution stage of the pickup process. So, that is something that other regionals or regionals should be looking at, because they're struggling with almost the opposite challenge, which is they don't have enough volume to staff up. So their service levels are suffering in terms of wait times. Their efficiencies are hamstrung by the fact that it's more challenging for them to batch out multiple orders. Maybe not in the assembly process, but definitely in the distribution process. Because if you're having maybe one pickup at your store every half hour, I mean, you can't realistically batch 2 orders out to the pickup point at the same time. So that's something that, they have to recognize is now really fueling the gains in terms of efficiency for Walmart.
So Walmart, they're not as embedded within the local communities as, say, the regional grocers are, who, typically have more stores closer to their customers. Is Walmart starting now to take advantage of the fact that they've got scale at these stores, whereas regionals tend to have more pickup at a larger number of stores, but not with the volume? Are you suggesting that they should look at consolidating their order volume so that they can take advantage of those efficiencies in fewer stores?
Well, I think first of all, to recognize that, Walmart is delivering against that expectation that all retailers have, which is if we can grow the volume, we can create efficiencies in our practices, whether it's in assembling those orders or whether it's distributing, and when it comes to distributing, that could be distributing from the staging area to a transfer point in the parking lot, or it could include distributing directly to the home and batching out multiple orders. I think what we would suggest is, okay, if you don't have the volume that's driving that virtuous cycle, and you have the lack of volume that's creating a vicious cycle, then what we would look at is, are there ways that you could shape demand that could create new opportunities to then drive some degree of efficiency? So by that, in really low volume areas, we've seen and recommended that they truncate their hours of operation so that they can collapse that demand into a shorter time period and create some efficiencies internally. That helps reduce cost, maybe not necessarily deliver a lot of value to the consumer.
Yep.
Or it's, looking at how you price the pickup fee, for instance, or delivery fee to encourage a behavior that will benefit you in a way that drives those efficiencies and then provides value to the customer in the form of lower pickup fee or delivery fee. So, this is where the retailers on the regional side do need to be creative in looking at that while fighting the urge to maybe expand operational hours because that's what others are doing. I mean, keep in mind, Walmart has moved to like 6 a.m. and opened later. Kroger's followed, but not everyone can do that or should do that because they still have plenty of challenges building enough demand for their current operation.
Yeah, great advice, David, as always.
And Mark, if you want, I could try to ask you a question now. Post that. No. Okay.
No question. Okay.
Go ahead. No, I'm not going to now.
Depends on what you want to ask me.
No, I was just trying to think of you had said you want to ask me anything or whatever. So, or at least say, are there any interesting practices or strategies that you heard?
I think the volume question is one. I think a lot of regionals are seeing that they may have a volume challenge at a number of their stores. And I think we've talked about that. I think the other one is the repeat purchase frequency. We see a lot of regionals scrambling now to activate the insights that they get from customer data and trying to catch up on where they should have been a year or 2 years ago. So I think that's definitely a dominant theme. And thirdly, I think there's concern. This is a very political year in the U.S. I think decisions are being held back, and sort of a wait and see approach is taking place to see how things shake out. And then the market dynamics. I mean, you have the Kroger Albertson deal that is in the offing, and what's the implication there, depending on, and there's a political implication as a result of that decision or pending decision. So I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern for now, while the larger regional, the larger players, Walmart and Amazon in particular, are able to continue to make advances in the marketplace. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think the political headwinds, to me, really impact delivery. And the uncertainty that additional legislative or regulatory activity would have, primarily around the classification of independent workers, independent contractors, I should say, can have a lasting material and dramatic effect on where things go for those who rely primarily on third-party distribution services. So I think, we have seen afoot at the state and local level, and not surprising, this is generally where it starts, those efforts. And, those grassroots activities are gaining steam. And I think at the same time, you see a similar but different, steam growing for those against the Kroger-Albertsons merger. So, I think the challenge is if delivery wins, supermarkets lose. If pickup continues to grow, supermarkets have a fighting chance. And that's because, delivery disintermediates the core strengths that the supermarkets enjoy: proximity to their customer, they're closer to those customers, and the level of service that customers generally receive from regionals is higher than they would get at mass. And one example would be, if you're looking for a prime cut of meat or fresh seafood and you want to go to a service department, odds are you're more likely to go to a regional than a mass retailer for that, because they simply don't have service departments. Again, regionals need to determine how they can introduce aspects that make them different in the physical world and bring those into the digital to help them compete based on their areas of strength.
Very good. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Well, we've come to the end of our time. I appreciate your contributions for this month. Look forward to chatting with you next time. Have a great month. Until then.